And so they're motivated because they're seeing their peers doing other things, and it's pretty cool. And they're realizing, I should be doing that. I can do that.
G'day, I'm Debra Caldow. Welcome to the Red Giraffe Solutions Expanding Worlds podcast, where we aim to support you as you help your young person with additional needs plan for their future, a future where they're safe, secure, and live a rewarding and fulfilling life. From around the world, I share stories and I share solutions from people making this possible right now. I'm a parent of a young person with additional needs, so I understand the challenges. Many of the people I've interviewed on this podcast have already helped me design a better future for my daughter, and I hope that they might help you as well to imagine what's possible for your young person. This podcast is made possible by Red Giraffe Solutions, which is a project I'm proud to be part of, supporting families to build a better future for their children. We now have available at Red Giraffe Solutions an online course called Independent Cooking Made Easy. This is a new and unique approach we developed when we realised traditional cooking techniques and recipes were never going to enable our daughter to cook without some support or supervision. It's a safe, simple system that uses no more than 5 ingredients, has no weighing, cutting or chopping, and no lifting of heavy dishes. Each of the 16 recipes in the course includes a step-by-step video of our daughter making the meal, plus a visual recipe card. We developed this for our daughter to solve her challenges with cooking, and every recipe in the course she can and does genuinely cook for herself. You can find a link to the course in this episode's show notes. Whenever we enter into new relationships with a friend, a partner, or even a colleague, it opens us up to new things, new feelings, new ideas, new experiences. In this week's episode, the second part of my conversation with Bob Etzel from iSocial, that's one of the things we're talking about, learning from others. The iSocial program not only matches people with similar interests to help them build social skills, it introduces them to people who can encourage them and also inspire them. This doesn't just have an impact on how people develop interpersonal relationships. This can then extend into the workplace as well. But the impacts can be wider than that, in terms of organisations that get the chance to see the value in hiring people based on what they can do rather than what they don't do. So let's find out more about how this works and why iSocial is pivotal to this happening. What is the main motivation for people doing it? Is it to do with employment? Is it parents saying, I really want my young person to have some interaction with the big wide world because I know it's good for them not to be socially isolated? Or is it, I want them to develop the skills so they can get employment? What is the main motivation, or are there just so many different ones for different people?
The motivation is normally by age group. So somebody is 50 years old and living at home, and now mom and dad are getting older and they're terrified. Somebody is 15 and was just diagnosed. A young man, Grant, for example, couldn't go to school. His mother had homeschooled him. Part of it was the school's issues in terms of not being able to work with him. And so how do we get together? Grant now is going to school. He's doing terrific in what he's doing. But the motivation from the parents can be anything from a great deal of turbulence in their life. There's always a great deal of care. We've had parents crying, practitioners crying. I never thought they could do that. So emotionally, there's a lot going on there. We just had the holidays in the United States. You always think those are wonderful, but boy, they can really be tough when you've got kids on the spectrum and the in-laws don't know how to, work with them. And so all of those things precipitate a call to me. So it's different by age. A big group for us are 18-year-olds, or actually like 20-year-olds. They've graduated from high school, they're sitting at home, and nothing has changed from the day they graduated, and they don't have the services that they had in the past. My son or my grandson, he's in the basement, all he's doing is playing video games, and they're right, nothing is going to change unless we get in and create that change for them.
Have you got some examples of then the wider impact it has? Because obviously they're coming together as 6 individuals and they chat and they may well be great friends, but how does that then translate to their daily lives and I guess get them out of the basement?
part of it is the science behind it. I'm recognizing emotions. There's a triangle scanning method. It's all scaffold the way that it's designed and proven effective. Now, what I'll talk to you about is the social aspect, though, of just bonding with others and that young man in the basement, not doing anything. Now he's in a group, though, with six others or five others, and this guy's just as smart as them. And here's a guy who's got a job at an anime shop. Well, that's pretty cool. Here's a guy that is going to junior college. Well, I'm just as smart as he is. And so they're motivated because they're seeing their peers doing other things, and it's pretty cool. Plus the fact you've got an adult there who he's got a good life. One individual that they'll meet has a nice home in Portland, and they're realizing I should be doing that. I can do that. The other thing that happens, Deborah, is they're reporting back. I went to school today. I enrolled in this. I got a job. Oh, how did that go? And so there's interest in the others and encouragement in terms of what's happening, so that there is great science behind it, but there's also a lot of value just in the peers themselves in helping one another.
Can I just dig down into the work bit? Because obviously some of the young people that come, or whatever age groups that are in the groups, they're coming because they want to get into paid work. And you said before that you don't try and change the individual, you try and support them to communicate more effectively. Do they then find that it's more difficult? I'm trying to figure out the right way to ask the question, but essentially what I'm trying to get at is they've got all these skills, but when they go into the workplace, they still face barriers. Conform's the wrong word, but you have to adapt in the workplace. But you also have to be true to yourself. How do those come together? Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. Early on, I realized that we're focusing on social skills. That's what we're doing. But in order to really impact change, and that's our goal, we need to team with others. We team with University of Connecticut and Wells Fargo have a new innovation center. So they work with employers. How do we interview people differently that have autism? How do we create jobs for people with autism? How do we supervise them? The important thing to remember, because I asked their executives, why are you doing this? You're a bank, bottom line oriented. And they said, this isn't charity. This isn't, oh, bless his heart. This is good for our bottom line because they're excellent workers. So we're hearing that now within about the last year or so, that it's bottom line driven by the employer. So we talk to people about this being bilingual. So the employer now understands, how do I speak to somebody that's on the spectrum? They're also trained, the supervisor. So don't say, it would be nice to have this on Thursday. Say, I need this on Thursday. The other thing is to the supervisor, if they get that work done on Thursday morning on your desk, do you care that they needed a break on Wednesday morning because things weren't going so well? Okay, I understand that. I'm not going to sweat the fact that they came in and said, it's too loud. I need to stand outside for a while. I got that because I know they're going to get their work done by Thursday. So one is you've got to create that environment that's conducive to success. We come into the equation in terms of getting them ready for the workplace. Our professional communications and leadership skills workshop, we don't talk about autism, by the way, but it's for people that are neurodistinct. But it's, what do you do when you know more than your boss? What do you do when you work on your team and you think everybody else is wrong and you're right? How do you read a room? How do you know when you talk too long? All of those are skills, and they work very, very well in terms of getting them ready. Because of my information technology background, I'm very sensitive to people that are highly skilled and they're neurodistinct. Time after time, we'd have young people that the parent would say, Ronnie could assemble a computer when he was in grade school. He taught himself programming. And yet, when they got into vocational school or programming school, they wouldn't do well at all. The reason why was that they're the only person who was neurodistinct in the classroom, and the teacher didn't know how to train people that are on the spectrum. So we work with a group now out of Florida. It's remote, it's mainstream IT certification, and it's just for people on the spectrum. So the instructors know how to teach that. So now if you look what we're doing, we're creating that environment. I've got the social skills. They're going to be very successful. They've got the job skills. And then we also work with another group in inclusivity, and they are like an intelligent hub. They use artificial intelligence to link thousands of applicants. It's free to put your name in their program. And they link those to employers that are looking for people that are on the spectrum. So a lot of change is happening, and iSocial is one of those components.
It's so much more about changing society as well. What you're kind of talking about there is that when employers think about having to adapt, it's not actually adapt, it's just to work better, because you're going to get a really useful workforce of people who will just do a great job. And it doesn't really matter if they're not coming to the Friday night drinks or whatever.
When I was working for SBC, this before they bought AT&T, we dressed alike. We had our own language in a way. IBM, they all wore the same colored shirt and suit and all of that, right? So, in an environment where conformity was the rule, anything that was not conforming, any behavior was suspect. Fortunately, we've moved from that. But why would you hire somebody that's neurodistinct that doesn't dress, doesn't look, doesn't act like everybody else? There are a lot of things that change that in terms of corporation and valuing, and now they value people who think differently. Thinking differently is a competitive advantage. It's good for the bottom line. So Madeline, who is third tier cloud tech support for IBM, she went through iSocial. When I asked her about her job and what she's doing, the number two person in her group did about 20 trouble tickets a day. Madeline does close to 45. And I asked her, do you memorize everything? And she said, no, Mr. Etzel, I don't memorize anything. I have a web in my head and I see the network and I see all of the network. So one would think quickly, well, that's great for IBM because they're getting double productivity from Madeline. But the real strategic value is that IBM and others used an iterative approach to problem solving. What was happening, though, was she was not following that iterative. She had a holistic approach and could quickly identify where the problem was. So the real value of having somebody who thinks differently is that they find better ways of doing things. There's other values of hiring people that are neurodistinct, but it's very real and it's very bottom line focused. Early on a Saturday morning, I had a conversation with the CFO of a $15 billion a year systems integrator, big company. But I was between this individual and his golf game. So he was real quick, real blunt. And he's saying, Bob, this is not about charity. It's about my ROI. And I am going to hire the best person for the job. What was happening was people like the University of Connecticut and others were beginning to say, these individuals are the best for that job. In cybersecurity, they spot anomalies so much better in data than other people. Now they started selling them on the fact that they are much better for the bottom line. There are some other factors in grocery stores and bank tellers and other things like that, in that grocery stores were hiring people out of charity, out of being kind. But then they realized that the only person in the store that the customers knew their name was Joe, the guy who is in the dairy department, and he knows everything about every product, but he's obviously neurodistinct. Then they started going, this is good for business because look at the image that we have and it's good and the consumers love it. So there's value there to the bottom line to businesses, and it isn't everywhere. I mean, it's still a lot of work to be done. But we were running 80% unemployment rate of people on the spectrum. And so that's wrong. Motivation's bottom line, but the trick is turning the lights on for the company so they realize, okay, this is good for our business and this is what we need to be doing.
I agree with Bob that we have a long way to go, but there is progress being made as organisations begin to understand the value of embracing different ways of thinking. This should never be about charity. It should be about value and valuing our differences and the value that can bring to any organisation. The iSocial program has the potential to not only impact on the lives of the people that do the program, but also on organisations that embrace and begin to understand the value of thinking differently. And hopefully it will also have even wider impacts on society and the way that we value individuals. I just want to say thank you for taking the time to listen, and I hope that the stories and solutions shared on here help you as you support your young person to create their future. If you know anyone who would find the ideas useful, please share the podcast with them. To support the podcast, please consider finding out more about the Independent Cooking Made Easy online course. It's a safe, simple system that works. There are links to the course in the show notes. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn at Debra Caldow. I'd love to have a conversation with you on any of the topics we all care about. Bye for now.